Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here today. I'm, of course, Gregor Guy.
And my name is Casey.
And we will be presenting the next episode of the Bangcast. This will be episode 19, I do believe. So, this particular week, this is obviously the week of the Masters. And I started hearing, talk about Tiger Woods coming back and playing in this, tournament. This is obviously one of the major golf tournaments, every year. And on top of that, if you don't know, he was involved in a car accident, I believe like a year and a half ago.
Isn't it his second car accident? He got in a car accident before.
Well, no, his wife beat the shit out of his vehicle with a golf club.
From my understanding, it was perfectly acceptable.
We'll get into that in a little bit. But anyway, there was talk that they were going to amputate his leg.
Right.
So from the research I've done, he had a broken bones in his lower leg, and they had to surgically repair them with pins, screws, rods.
So they built him and they could make him better.
Yeah.
Stronger. Faster.
He's the $6 billion man. Yeah, but I mean, with those level of injuries, I was shocked when I heard this because he has not played a competitive round of golf since this accident. And, a lot of, the analysts and everything were saying that, Augusta National is not the place where you want to play your first round because just the walk itself is so difficult. Because they obviously don't use carts on the Pro Tour.
I mean, I think obviously he definitely put some work into getting back. So to think that he wasn't on a golf course, I mean, obviously I think he was on private golf courses before this and doing like shoot-arounds or playing with other people.
Yeah, but this is his first competitive tournament back.
So I haven't paid. I had heard that he came back, but I have not been paying attention to the game at all. So is he actually doing decent?
Well, I typically don't follow golf either. You'll find out who wins on Monday and everything.
Right.
Because I'm gonna be honest. Tiger Woods is, if I had to choose a favorite golfer, I would say he's my favorite golfer just because of his story. And we can get into that in a little bit. But as far as how he's doing, I think his, because I've been flipping on Sports Center, I think his first round he was up there toward, I think he was 10th on the leaderboard.
That's not bad at all.
For your first round back. Second round he tumbled down a little bit, and I think his third round was just ugly. But I also did hear that there were extreme wind conditions going on the course when he was out there. So I mean, kind of sucks for the luck of the draw.
I think as with any sport, it's you can golf isn't maybe the most physical game in the world, but it's still a young man's game.
Yeah.
So just for the fact that he's out there doing that well.
Yeah, and he's 46 too.
Yeah. I mean, not saying that he's older or anything because I'm slightly younger and I don't want to be called old either. Well, but I am definitely not a 23, 24, 25-year-old out there smacking balls because I had way more energy and my body recovered way faster back then.
Right. Yeah, and on top of that, he also had his back fused a few years ago. Disc and his back fused together. He came back from that injury and won the Masters tournament, which is the tournament he's playing in now, back in 2019, I believe. Yeah. So
to say that golf isn't a physical game, it definitely is. And there, you put your body. I mean, if you just watch a golf swing, it's just not a natural movement.
Yeah, I agree with that. So basically, that is going to be what we're going to be talking about here this week. The greatest athlete, we'll say, instead of sports, we'll say athlete comebacks, from physical injury that, we have come across.
But I didn't really pick any specific athletes. I picked more along the lines of the type of injuries and stuff like that.
Well, that's still an athlete having an injury and having to come back from it.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the general concept.
The speed at which medical technology nowadays is pumping players and athletes from, like in the past, they'd be like life-altering injuries and career-ending injuries, and how, like, my first example would be like a Nolan Ryan, and obviously who was a pitcher for the Astros and the Rangers back in the day, probably one of the greatest pitchers, and my personal favorite pitcher of all time. The man played, I don't remember, I think somewhere around 20 years in the MLB. And this is at a time before the medical enhancements have improved to a point. And even still, the injury that he ended his career on was a shoulder throwing injury, which nowadays, if somebody has that injury, they just they kind of rebuild the whole shoulder muscle and reattach it, and it actually, in some cases, makes that pitcher throw the ball faster than they did before.
Modern medicine, right?
Right. and Nolan Ryan himself was a freak of nature. He, like, in those 20 years, and this is at a time, like, nowadays you'll have a pitcher, he'll maybe like throw like 6 innings a game.
Right.
And that's it. And back then, they'd play the entire game. Unless you were doing absolutely horrible. They put you out there, you were pitching 9 innings.
Yeah. And then the manager, if you're doing terrible, will walk out to the mound and be like, or do whatever he does.
Right.
Get this scrub out of here.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think there's lefty.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't follow a whole lot of baseball. I mean, I do know who Nolan Ryan is.
Right.
Didn't he have some silly record, like he struck out like 300 people in a year or something?
I don't know the records, but I do know he was definitely one of the best, 100%. And not to mention his career was extremely long for a Major League Baseball player in a time where you're pitching 9 innings and not 6 or 4.
Right. Yeah, I can see that being, definitely strenuous on the body.
Right.
I would say. But, as you said, with
now he
modern medical technology and everything, I mean, it just changes sports.
Yeah, I know we were talking about comeback, and he never did come back from that injury.
Oh, he didn't.
No. However, just nowadays you have it seems like 50 to 60% of the pitchers in the league now have had it's a famous name injury.
Tommy Johns.
Tommy Johns.
Yeah.
Have had the same type of injury and have come back, where it's for Nolan Ryan it was career ending, but for these pitchers they come back in about a year and they're ready to go.
All right. Well, the next one that I got comes from my favorite sport, the NHL. Good old NHL. In 2001, September 2001, the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, Saku Koivu, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
I don't know, I never heard of it before.
Heard of what?
Saku Koivu?
Saku Koivu.
Oh, Saku Koivu.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that name from? Do you know?
Don't quote me on this, but I would venture to say he's somewhere in the Russian bloc.
Okay, I was thinking
Possibly even Czechoslovakia.
Okay,
Maybe. Like I said, don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but
I got you.
Either way, he was diagnosed, and I believe it was in September of 2001. So this was probably either during training camp, preseason, or right at the beginning of the season. So he sat out the entire, regular season, until the third from the last game, where he came back, played at the, I don't think it was the Bell Center, I think it might have been the Rogers Arena at that point in time, in Montreal. Came back to an 8-minute standing ovation from the fans.
Right.
Obviously there were treatments and everything that went in, and this is probably like I want to say like a 7-month period after he was diagnosed. Mm-hmm. That he came back. 8-minute standing ovation from the fans, like they would not sit down.
Right.
And I mean, think about that. That's your team captain. He's the guy in Montreal. Leader of the team, everything. So, first of all, could you imagine getting an 8-minute standing ovation from 25,000 people?
I mean, I would imagine if it's 8 minutes, you kind of lose track of time somewhere in there. I mean, if it was me, it would be I'm sure it was very emotionally moving to him.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine it being anything else but.
Right. I mean, the only other place I hear about 8 to 10 minute standing ovations is in like North Korea, where if you sit down and you stop clapping, you get shot. But that's a whole different situation.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a little bit different circumstances there. But just to round off, and finish out that story, they wound up becoming the 8th seed in the playoffs, and in the first round, they went out and knocked off the number 1 seed Boston Bruins at that point in time.
Okay.
In the 2002 playoff year. They did, however, lose in the next round, so it wasn't like a miracle moment. But
so I wouldn't expect him probably to be the MVP of those games or anything like that. Coming back from something like that, but. Do you know how well he did in the games?
I don't know what. I do believe he. Well, actually, no. That was.
But I think that there's a lot to say about an inspiring presence.
Yeah.
And making moments special.
That's right.
Trying harder.
That's what I'm saying. I think I could be wrong, but I think they needed to win 2 of the 3 final games after he come back to make the playoffs.
Right. Okay.
Don't quote me on that. But I was just more or less impressed about the 8-minute standing ovation. I mean, on top of that, the guy beat cancer, basically.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. The only comparable thing, I do know in the NFL, there was a guy, Eric Berry. He was a safety for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was one of the best safeties in the league. I remember, because as a Browns fan, that is the guy. I don't remember who they drafted rather than Eric Berry. It definitely wasn't another safety, but I wanted them that year to draft
to get that guy,
Eric Berry. Eric Berry did come down with cancer probably like 4 or 5 years into his career, and he did come back. I think he came back like maybe about 1.5 years later, something like that.
Did you notice a performance?
Yeah, he definitely wasn't the same.
Wasn't the same.
He definitely wasn't the same player coming back, but he still was. He wasn't like.
He wasn't terrible.
He was average.
Yeah,
I'd say. I think he was out of the league maybe like a couple years after that, but it's definitely still like an inspiring thing to have somebody come back from.
Something that could just rock your entire life,
or in your life.
Yeah. That's another way to look at it too.
Which for example, there's a little sneak peek into the future is that I will be working on how close are we to curing cancer.
Ooh, a tease.
And it's a very complicated answer. It definitely there is some forms that are already being cured, not being cured, but being treated. In some instances, curing and eradicating cancer from the body.
Okay.
But you're always more prone to get what is the word when it comes back?
Oh man, I'm blanking on that right now.
You know what I mean. But it's more common for it to come back into you than have it appear like a completely new person.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Was Eric Berry actually on your list, or did you just think about that?
No, I just think about that. I didn't even make a list. I'm just coming up with these.
Well, I mean, you got another one?
I mean, we can talk about the ACL injuries. So many players, like back in the probably even like 15, 20 years ago, there's been they've been career-ending injuries. You know what I mean? Somebody gets hurt with an ACL injury, ACL tear. They would never be coming back. Then you have examples like, I mean, there's so many in the NFL. For one, you can put out Odell Beckham. He's had ACL tears in both of his calves, and every time he comes back, maybe like a year later, and it seems like the same way with all these players, is that these words, devastating career-ending injuries, maybe like 10 years ago, and now you have players stepping right back, like taking the year off, stepping right back in, losing maybe like a small step.
Yeah.
But not a major. It's not a major factor in how fast they can run or.
Well, a lot of that though is a testament to modern medicine and how much better they are at fixing these particular
I mean that's with all of these cases is modern. I mean even Tiger Woods, he might not, like 10, 15 years ago, he might have been walking around in crutches with one leg or a false leg or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, what I researched, there were serious discussions as to whether or not they were going to amputate his leg.
Right.
Which, I mean,
right. It's kind of the same way with
I also
players.
heard that he laid in a hospital bed and did not get up for 3 months. Could you imagine that? Laying in a hospital bed for 3 months straight, not even getting up to go to the bathroom.
Well, I'll say something about the kind of money that a person like Tiger Woods makes is that this hospital bed was probably more of a luxury something that was extremely comfortable, and it was he had everything that he could possibly need at any time.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was in an actual hospital too.
Right.
It wasn't like he was in the hospital bed at his house.
Well, if I'm going to be here, you might as well make this place look like let's turn this gold. I want that door to be solid gold. Just put a solid gold door in there.
I don't think he was putting gold doors in the hospital. Just going on. Another one that comes to mind for me from the hockey world, actually on a similar note of the Saku Koivu thing, was Mario Lemieux. Mario Lemieux. I mean, I will present the information that I am aware of. I'm sure there is way more to it and way more that I even just missed while I was researching. But I think at the end of the 96-97 season, he got diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, because there's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and apparently Hodgkin's lymphoma. I don't know the medical difference between the two, but he got diagnosed and he retired.
Right.
Now, in 2000, he was on a or involved with a group that purchased the Pittsburgh Penguins in order to keep them in Pittsburgh. Now, also, I guess we should state that if you don't know, Mario Lemieux is probably one of
one of the greatest players.
He is one of the greatest players, that has ever graced the ice in the NHL.
I would say he's the second most famous as to Wayne Gretzky for hockey.
For that time frame, yes. Yeah, I would say. I don't know. Gordie Howe's up there.
Well, I'm just thinking
Gordie
like
Howe's
names.
beast.
Like I would have never came up with the name Gordie Howe, and I'm not.
Well, I mean that
fan.
was also that was probably like 50s and 60s too.
Right. I'm not a major hockey fan, but when you have like the one name in basketball that everybody knows is Michael Jordan.
Actually, oddly enough, I think Gordie Howe played a game in the 90s for the Detroit Red Wings. I believe he actually skated in a game, and he was like 80 or something.
Well,
that's how badass that dude was.
You and I both know that they put him out there just as like a marketing ploy, not really, or maybe even out of respect. But there's no way that he was contributing.
I think that's more what it was, a respect thing.
Yeah, there's no way he was contributing to the game on the Red Wings at 80.
I mean, he might have been in his 70s. But either way,
well, even still,
he was definitely had the white hair going on.
Right.
But anyway, back to Mario Lemieux. So in 2000, like I said, they purchased the Pittsburgh Penguins because there was talk of moving the team out of Pittsburgh, and obviously this group came in, they bought the team, kept the team in Pittsburgh, and after I want to say it was 2001. 2001, he came back and played for the team that he actually owned. Also, in 2002, he captained the Canadian national team, I believe, to a gold medal in the Olympics. So,
Was he an
all this
player
after coming back, from basically, Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Right.
So, I mean, hey. I don't. Another thing that kind of struck me is all these older hockey players, coming back after some stuff where like I've done enough,
right?
Okay, and then coming back again.
Well, there's something to say about sports where it's first of all the love of the game, you don't get to that level without being an extremely highly competitive person. And then just the camaraderie of the team.
Yeah. On team sports, I think that's a huge thing.
You miss being in the locker room with other people. Mm-hmm. It's just a different environment. If you've never experienced it, you would never really understand. I mean, I played a little bit of football, and I kind of felt it, but more along the lines, I would compare it to how it was being deployed and living in a tent with
that's actually a great analogy.
Yeah, with what was it, like 20 or 30 other guys for like 6 months or 8 months straight. You know what I mean?
Right.
You basically, I mean, not everybody gets along, but you learn how to live together, and you learn how to enjoy your time you spend with them.
Yeah. On top of that, like you said, with the camaraderie and everything, if something happens, the whole team's going to be there. It doesn't matter whether you like that individual or not.
Right.
It's more of a group mentality. Mm-hmm. I would say
you fight for each other.
Yep.
You work as one. And any team that doesn't have that type of mindset is bound to fail.
Agreed. Yeah. So Mario Lemieux, and on top of that, he, like I said, he come back and he captained the Canadian national team to a gold medal. All after having, I assume Hodgkin's lymphoma is a cancer. I know I'm going to get roasted for that in the comments, but I believe it's a form of cancer.
So I might be wrong on this. I thought Mario Lemieux had a neck injury, or was that Mason Crosby?
I think that might have been Jaromir Jagr. I could be wrong.
I mean, Jaromir Jagr himself is a miracle.
Do you know that he is still playing over in Europe somewhere?
And I think he's like 50 years old. To be honest.
He's
and
over
I think
50.
He's playing on a highly competitive level.
Yeah, he's playing in the European.
The man is a freak of nature.
Yeah,
I think he left the NHL, right? He left the NHL, and then he went to Russian hockey. I don't know if he got cut from the NHL.
I don't think it was Russian hockey. I think he's playing in like a Czech league, Czechoslovakian league.
Okay, and he left, and then he came back to the NHL, and he played, I don't know, like 3-4 years or something like that.
I think he played a couple. I want to say he played on the Avalanche. I could be wrong. But yeah, I think he played like 2 or 3 years.
What, he wasn't on the Capitals?
I don't know if that was his time frame or not. I don't know. I'd have to look into it.
I think he did play on the Capitals. I'm not sure. So he went.
I do believe at some point in time he did play on the Capitals, but I'm not sure if that was in this stint. Is what I'm saying.
So here's my pondering. Do you think that he had to take something that he probably shouldn't be taking to be able to compete for as long as he has? Like some HGH or something along that line.
Okay, I can tell you right now from experience playing hockey, if he's taking anything, he's taking painkillers.
Painkillers?
Hockey is a rough, tough sport.
Well, here's the thing with HGH and certain drugs is that your body recovers faster. It kind of like reverts you back to like a younger form of body of yourself, where your body heals faster and you can play stronger.
I mean, maybe, but I don't see. I don't think, unless you're like an enforcer or anything. I don't really think you're using any type of growth hormones or anything like that. Steroid. I mean,
steroids is
different. Yeah, but like I said, unless you're an enforcer, I don't think many of them players out there or.
HGH is more of like a thing where your body's natural revitalization is basically sped up.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need some of that. If you out there have access to HGH, let us know down in the comments below.
Yeah, it doesn't make you stronger, but
anyway.
Greg wants drugs. Give Greg drugs.
Give Greg drugs. Drugs is bad, okay? There's a PSA for the episode.
Yeah.
Alright, the only other one I got was in 1976. There was a Formula One race car driver named Nikki Lauda. He was involved in a title fight with James Hunt, which later got turned into a movie, which some of you out there might have seen, called Rush. Have you ever seen this movie?
No.
From everything I've been told, it's fairly historically accurate. However, there was some stuff, as usually happens with these things, to make it more, intriguing, I guess you could say. So there was some, I guess, liberties taken with the story. However, what did happen was at the 1996 German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, first of all, he called a meeting, a driver's meeting. And there was a vote taken as to whether or not to proceed with the race because it was wet conditions, and also if you know anything about this track, it is like 13 and a half miles long, 180 some corners. Like
180 corners.
There is no way to have track workers and medical personnel in order to be able to cover the entire track.
Right.
So I think the term barbaric was used in the Rush movie, to describe this racetrack. Now, either way, the drivers, I guess, voted, and they, went along with the race, went on with the race, and a few laps in, something happened on Lauda's car. It broke, smashed into a barrier, and caught on fire.
So it didn't have anything to do with the track conditions. The car broke itself.
The car broke itself.
Okay.
Yes, that's what's believed, because the footage isn't really great from back then.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to really tell exactly what happened. But also, he was engulfed, and back then they also used this weird fuel that would it would burn like clear.
So you can't see it?
So you can't see it.
Okay.
So, and also he got trapped, inside the cockpit. He couldn't get out. He was in this inferno for like 50 seconds, or maybe even a little more.
Right.
Anyway, suffered severe burns. He wound up in the hospital for what I believe was like probably about the next at least month, where he went through various procedures, skin grafts. I remember hearing this thing where they had to vacuum the burnt lung material out of his lungs by shoving this tube down in there. At least that's what happened in the movie.
Right.
I have to assume that something similar probably did happen.
Right.
Because it's just impossible to believe that you're in an inferno like that for that long, breathing in the fire.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know. Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Sounds very terrible.
Definitely doesn't sound like I'm anything we'd volunteer for.
Yeah. And also they truly believe that he was going to pass.
Right.
They didn't think there was any way he was going to make it, but he did make it. And 42 days after his injury, he came back and he was racing at the Italian Grand Prix
in 42
Monza.
days.
And, which is also amazing because he was a Ferrari driver. So, yes, the local Italian fans were very excited, nonetheless.
Honestly, I don't see how you recover that.
I don't either.
From like skin grafts and stuff. I don't know. I don't know a lot about, but I would feel like your body would have to heal longer than like a little over a month.
Like I said, no one believed that he was there, and no one believed that. First of all, that he was even there.
Right.
Secondly, that he was planning on racing that weekend. Now, I don't know, I didn't actually look into the historical accuracy of this, but in the Rush movie, anyway, did not have a good start. However, because apparently, like I said, just imagining the pain of putting a helmet on with your face totally burnt. In fact,
right.
He was burnt so bad that his ear was basically gone. It's almost like he didn't have an ear. So, I mean, just imagine that.
I mean, it is painful because you got nerves in your ear,
Mm-hmm.
but you actually don't really need your ear either.
Yeah, but I mean...
Yeah, but it's still painful. Right?
Well, on top of that, if it melted his ear off, imagine the rest of his face.
Yeah.
It's kind of where I'm getting at.
Right.
So, if it was that hot, I mean, it had to have been, I would assume, between 800 and 1,000 degrees in that fire. So,
very lucky to be alive, definitely.
Yeah. And then 42 days later, comes back, and I believe he finished 4th in that race, which was just unbelievable. Unbelievable that could even, potentially happen.
I mean, it also has something to say about the technology of the suits that drivers wear. I mean, even then, and compared to today, I watched a video. I mean, this I don't know if you have any more to say about that situation, but I watched a video the other day of an IndyCar driver. I do not remember the name because I had not even planned to bring this up. And I don't know if this guy came back to race again. But they built this halo thing on the front of Indy cars, which is it's actually very cool.
I think they call it a windscreen.
They called it a halo in the video that I was watching.
Well, the halo is an F1 thing.
Okay, maybe it was an F1 race.
Oh no, I know exactly what you're talking. You're talking about Romain Grosjean.
Yes, where he slid and he went through.
Yes,
he went through the barrier.
Yes,
and the car was completely cut in half.
Yes,
and I when I watched the video, I was like, oh, this guy is probably dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's then 20 seconds later, you see him hopping out of the thing.
Yeah, he's getting out of and he's jumping over the barrier.
I was actually watching that race when it happened.
Right.
I was like, oh, no.
So do you know if he's racing again?
Yeah, well, he's in IndyCar now. This happened.
So he is racing.
This was his next to the last race, and that he was in Formula One. He was leaving Formula One anyway.
Okay.
But this was the next to the last race before, he was out. And then he come back next year and race IndyCar.
Right.
So. Which is amazing. But yes, that halo, device that they have on Formula One cars, that 120% saved his life.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Because the way that car got wedged in there and the Armco barrier, the halo split it.
Yeah,
and
spread
the
it
front
out
of the
and
cockpit went through the other side, so he was able to hop over the barrier and get out.
Right. Yeah, no shot did I think that after seeing that accident that he was going to get out of the car.
Yeah. Like, believe me, I was watching, I was like, uh-oh. And, I think someone died in Formula 2 a few years ago, but I don't think there has been a death in Formula 1 since, like, the 90s. So,
let's be honest, the technology that they put in these cars for safety is so much better nowadays, yeah. So, you see a lot of these accidents, there's cars flying in the air like 20 feet and then smashing back into the ground, and these guys are walking away from them. People going through the barriers at like 120 miles an hour, splitting through the barrier, cutting their car in half, and then walking away from it. You know what I mean?
While it's on fire.
Right, while it's on fire.
Yeah, dude, I remember watching that. Like, I think they had to red flag that race for like 2 hours.
Did they?
Yeah, in order to repair the barrier. It might have been like an hour.
Right.
But either way, it was a long time. But yeah, seeing him hop up out of there, dude, I was like, wow, safety's come a long way.
Yeah. Even with Dale Earnhardt, where his accident and his passing in Daytona, I think his son had a very similar. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had a very similar accident. I'm not 100% sure. It might have been also at Daytona, but he went into the wall exactly like Dale Earnhardt Sr. did, and he walked away from that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I know he had concussions, which led to him retiring.
Right.
But
he's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they did that. They instituted, along with the IndyCar, the research on that whole safer barrier kind of thing.
Right.
Which that's more or less for like oval circuits and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Not really what I pay attention a whole lot to anymore.
Right.
I love the Formula One though.
I don't watch any kind of racing.
Endurance sports cars.
Great. I don't have that type of attention span nowadays. It seems like I'll watch something for about 10 minutes, and that's all you get from me.
10 minutes. What's the final 2 laps?
Yeah.
Good to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know how it ended. That's all I needed.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, the only other thing I'll say on the whole Lauda situation is that they went to, the final race of the year, and it was at Japan. I believe it was raining, and he completed 1 lap, pulled his car into the pits, and retired from the race. And that allowed James Hunt to win his first and only World Championship title. So,
yeah.
Maybe he just knew it wasn't worth it.
Right.
Or, I mean, I'm sure there are a bunch of different opinions, but I don't know. I like the movie. I'd recommend it out there. Rush, if you haven't seen it yet. Alright, well, there we go. This week we talked about athletes coming back from horrific injuries, other horrific injuries, horrific sights that we have seen on television, racing accidents. Kind of an interesting week, I thought.
Right.
All spurred on by Tiger Woods coming back to play in the Masters. So if you found any bit of this content enjoyable, remember to like, share,
subscribe, and hit that bell button.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm of course Gregor Guy.
My name is Casey.
And everyone out there, thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.